Inference Plus Story Short number 28, Series A. Granny's hair against the faded percale pillowcase was delicate as fairy floss. Mom and Linda fussed about the room, holding back their grief and fear with a series of unnecessary tasks, tidying the dresser drawers, dusting the bedside table, adjusting and readjusting the window shades, which never seemed to line up quite right, one side always a hair's breadth higher than the other. Jane was in the kitchen, combing through every box of cereal and spoon-jammed drawer in search of the money Granny seemed to have stashed everywhere, a product of her Depression-era girlhood. So far, there was roughly $800 in crumpled bills accumulated in the wooden salad bowl, and that was just from the lower cabinets. Carly sat in the uncomfortable chair in the corner of the bedroom, the one where Granny had spread out clothing too dirty to put back in the closet, but too clean to warrant the hamper. Mom and her aunts did not want her there. They'd made that clear. Go home. There is nothing for you to do. It's making her agitated. You're in the way. Shouldn't you be at work? She was not part of their inner circle. She was not part of any inner circle at all. But Carly could not leave. She felt a need to be there, to be the one still and quiet thing. They never sat down. Their hands never stopped touching and opening and prying and sorting. It seemed disrespectful to her, not to mention unnecessary. Real death, she knew, was not the same as it was in the movies. She'd learned that brutal truth when Gramps died the winter she turned 11. It had been like this then, too, and it had felt just as wrong as it did now. The difference was that now Carly had seen enough of the world, enough of other people's families, to give names to the uncomfortable wrongness, poor communication skills, family dysfunction, emotional immaturity. In her 20s, bolstered by her own newfound mental health, she had believed it would be possible to change them, the way a dam changes the path of water and reroutes it away from homes and factories. If she had possessed a mature knowledge of denial or the unpredictable consequences of dams, she wouldn't have charged forth with so much bravado. Ah, hubris. He that is proud eats up himself. She'd plunged headfirst into the well-worn paths and tried to dig her way out with a spoon. She had managed to reroute the raging waters, but was surprised when the force of them turned on her and nearly drowned her. By the time she turned 30, she had learned the importance of maintaining a protective shell of wariness when dealing with her mother and aunts. The sheets rustled. Granny was awake. Foggy from the painkillers, it took her a few seconds to focus her eyes on Carly in the chair in the corner. "Is that my Carly Jean?" Carly knelt awkwardly beside the bed so her face and Granny's were inches apart. "Yep, it's me. How are you feeling?" "Like dog shit." They both laughed. Carly's mother's eyes flicked towards them with irritation. Her lips pursed as though she'd tasted something sour. "You're going to make her cough." "I'll cough anyhow," Granny said. "That's my Carly Jean, such pretty eyes, hazel like your grandpa." Carly's throat began to ache. "They're not hazel," Carly's mother snapped. "They're just brown, plain brown like everybody has." Carly's mother had always been a believer in the idea that complimenting a person, especially a child, bred conceit. No self-esteem on her watch, Carly thought dryly. "You been sitting over there very long?" "Not too long." "Do you remember when you used to come over in the summertime when you were little? We'd soak our feet in the dish tub and wash the soaps. You remember that? And you'd let me put my barrettes in your hair." She felt the plastic clips in the shapes of ducks and Scotty dogs snap closed beneath her fingers as though she'd only just stepped away for a moment. "Kept you busy and where I could see you. You told me the story about the time you won the chocolate bunny and hid it from your dad. In a ditch, got filled up with water, served me right, I guess." Carly imagined the ruined chocolate and Granny's puckered 6-year-old face and smiled. "I loved that story." "Remember how I used to sew your dresses? You was always so cute in them little sundresses." "You made me a green gingham one with orange flowers on the top, with matching bloomers underneath." "That was a nice one. I did a good job on smocking on that one." A painful pause. "Granny, I'm sorry I didn't visit enough. I got busy with things. kids and work, and I didn't visit you. That's the way of things, natural way. You came by enough. Did I? Did I really? The ache was huge and unbearable now, straining with the knowledge that Granny was the last person alive in the world who loved her without condition. Trying to hold on to that love now was like trying to hold on to smoke. The more she grasped at it, the further it drifted away. Carly's mother and aunts had moved down into the cellar now. The agitated jumble of their voices carried through the ductwork in a jumble. Bits and pieces could be made out. Expired in 2001. Rusted mess. And the words gave Carly a rush of vicarious humiliation on Granny's behalf. Muffled thunks and rustles as ancient cans of peaches and corn jostled one another on their way into the trash bags. You remember them little dogs I had when you was a tiny girl? Of course, Lee-Boy and Tilly. Lee-Boy bit me once on the ankle when I was playing in the sprinkler. I sure did love them little dogs. I always had Tilly wear a rhinestone collar. Your grandpa thought that was foolishness. I used to be jealous that the dog got a fancy necklace and I didn't. Granny laughed. Sounds like your mama and her sisters got themselves pretty worked up about the pantry. You know how they are. Not how I raised them, or so I thought, but they're all this way. Must have been something I did. Carly thought of the stories about Granny as a mother. She'd heard from her own mother. Rages and slaps and criticism. Mom's neurosis hadn't come out of nowhere, but people mellow with age, and she supposed that was what had happened with Granny. I can't stand listening to 'em tearing up my house and making a racket. Won't let me sleep, won't sit down, and just be for so much as a second. I'm tired. I don't want to listen to 'em no more. They're a lot, Carly agreed. Honey, you mind passing me over them pills right there? I'm hurting. I don't think you're supposed to have any more for a couple of hours, Granny. It don't matter. I ain't gonna tell. Carly passed the bottle to Granny. Granny could not open it. Child-proof lids, terrible things. Open it for me, Carly Jean. She pushed and turned. The lid came free. She passed the bottle back to Granny. Why don't you go get me some ice from her water? I don't like water that ain't cold. Carly took the plastic cup with its lid and bendy straw into the kitchen. She took a moment to wash the cup with soap and hot water, then filled it to the brim with ice. She topped it with water and used the straw to give it a stir. The muffled complaints from the basement droned on and on. Thunk, thunk, thunk went the cans into the bags. The empty bottle lay among the faded percale sheets, and for a moment the world was cool and still.